All right, yesterday, Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey issued an emergency regulation against gender transition procedures for minors. Noting that many European countries are reversing course on such procedures, Attorney General Bailey announced the emergency regulation will last 30 legislative days or 180 days, whichever is longer. As the number of these experimental procedures skyrocket, could this be a model for other conservative attorney generals to protect minors in their own states until the legislatures can take the appropriate actions? Joining me now to discuss this is the Attorney General of the state of Missouri, Andrew Bailey. General Bailey, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Thank you for having me on.
So, General, tell our viewers and listeners about your emergency regulation and the effect that it would have.
Well, certainly, this is about protecting children for us. And so to that end, we've discovered that at least one clinic here in Missouri is performing transgender procedures on minors without proper informed consent, according to a whistleblower that's come forward. And these are scary allegations. And if even 10% of these allegations are true, this is nothing short of child abuse. And the problem is we've asked the clinic to stop and put a moratorium on these procedures while we look into the matter and determine what is and isn't happening. They've refused to do so and claim that they're the only clinic in the state that provides these services. And we know that's patently false. We've discovered online that other clinics across the state of Missouri are doing this. There's a clandestine, shadowy industry for gender mutilation of these young children, and we're going to put a stop to it. And so we've used our authority under consumer protection laws to promulgate this emergency rule, and it's going to require real informed consent, and it's going to put certain requirements on these providers that want to masquerade medicine. It's a woke left-wing ideology in the form of medicine, and we're going to put a stop to it.
In general, in your order and announcing your order, you talk about how they're experimental. We don't know the long-term effects. In fact, many in the medical field are raising concerns about not just the surgeries, but how these drugs are being misused, not according to the label. And this is something that needs to be fully investigated before we allow our children to be experimented on.
That's absolutely right. Look, the FDA has said that puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones are not approved for these types of procedures and these types of treatments. We know that they cause blindness, brain swelling, that they cause a loss of bone density. And we know for a fact that places like Sweden have said that we have to abandon these types of medications and ultimate surgeries because the risks outweigh the benefits. Why aren't we using psychiatry and psychology to talk to children who come into these clinics with mental health problems? Why are we racing to administer drugs and ultimately surgery that has long-term and permanent health consequences? And so that's why this rule is absolutely necessary right now. I'm proud to be leading the nation on this issue because it's about protecting kids for me.
And in your order, you also point to the fact that there's a social contagion here that we're talking about. You have this huge skyrocketing number of kids that are wanting to go down this path. And instead of the counseling that you made reference to, that we would see what the underlying issues are, they're immediately shuffled down this path to begin these hormone treatments, which then become the natural precursor to the surgery. So, I mean, this is something that has lifelong implications for these children. You're saying, hey, let's just slow this thing down and make sure that everyone knows exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, that's right. We're going to use every legal mechanism at our disposal to inhibit this kind of experimentation with experimental drugs and experimental procedures that is a shadowy, clandestine movement to mutilate and harm children. And we're going to put a stop to it. We've got to give our General Assembly a time to evaluate the situation and enact new statutes, but we're going to use the legal recourse we have available to us today. And part of that is the investigation we've launched into the clinic in St. Louis and marshaling state resources for that effort. But the other part is what we've done this week, which is to promulgate this rule, and we're going to stand by it. It's going to be in effect I believe it'll be in effect for quite a while, and that'll give the General Assembly time to give us some guidance on this issue. But it's got to happen because we've got to protect children. The eyes of history are upon us and how we're dealing with this issue today, and I'm proud to say that the state of Missouri is going to lead on this issue.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I think this is one of those things we'll look back on and say, how in the world did we let this happen. Now, last time we spoke, General, you had just started an investigation into one of the clinics there in St. Louis. Any additional information that you've uncovered? I mean, it's a multi-agency investigation that's taking place that you're leading. Any new information?
Well, two things to point out. Number one, we have a bill moving in the General Assembly that imposes certain restrictions and eliminates a lot of these types of procedures. And it also causes immediate licensure revocation for people who violate the standards put forth in the proposed statute that's in the bill. And I'm really proud to say that bill, it was crafted in response to the work we're doing in that investigation. But I'm also frightened. And I'm frightened for exactly the reason you pointed out in one of your previous questions, which is that as we dug into this issue, we realized that this wasn't isolated. This is happening at clinics across the state of Missouri. And if it's happening in Missouri, it's happening across the United States of America. And so we've got to stand up and get a hold of this issue and add some sanity back into the conversation. At the end of the day, God made man and woman. And I believe that gender is an objective reality defined by biology at your time of birth. And it is unhealthy to deny objective reality in the same way that it's unhealthy to deny the law of gravity, which is also objective reality. And so we're going to stand up and protect kids from parents who want to make harmful decisions or don't have the proper information, and make sure that these clinics are doing their jobs to protect kids and not harm the kids.
Well, we certainly appreciate that. Final question for you, General Bailey. You, of course, are taking hits from the left for this. The LGBT advocacy groups say you're threatening the very existence of transgender children. We know their rhetoric is over the top. Would you like to see, and are you seeing, other attorney generals follow your lead on this?
I think so. I think that the conversation nationally on this issue has shifted to a great extent, and I understand that the left is upset about it. They should be. They're more interested in a woke left-wing brainwashing ideology than they are in objective reality and in protecting kids. And as a parent who's adopted kids out of the foster system, I know firsthand what it means to protect children, and I'm going to use every recourse I have in law to make sure we do that to protect kids here in the state of Missouri.
Well, we're grateful for what you're doing in the state of Missouri and the example that you're providing to other states all across the nation. General Bailey, always great to talk with you. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, sir.